So 2 or 3 years ago, I did a video on Jonnu Smith, beastly tight end, Tennessee Titans at the time. It was a little bit of a weird video because it's basically what happened to, but this is for an up and coming player. Usually I'm doing it for a player whose career is done. But his story, like even up to that point, I felt was good enough to do a whole what happened to on him. And nobody come to me for my takes or predictions, thank goodness. But I pretty much predicted his career would ascend. But right after that, you know, he signed with the Patriots and you know what I'm saying? Look, I'm not trying to rub it in, but you know, the Patriots have had some offensive struggles since old Brady left. But now, Jonnu is 28 years old. And by the time the season starts, he's gonna be 29. But through 7 years in the league, he hasn't really had that breakout. Now, he's hovered around that 500-yard mark a few times, which for a tight end is pretty good, but he really hasn't come close to actually reaching his potential. Now, he played for the Titans in a run-heavy offense. He played for the Patriots in an offense that didn't work. Last year, he had Arthur Smith and Desmond Ridder, and I don't know why he went there. They don't even use Kyle Pitts. But now he's going to Miami. Wide open offense, space, a situation to where it's like, okay, this is the one. Like, if he can't break out here at 29 years old, then he'll still have a solid career, but not a top tier player. But I'm excited for him, bro. Like, this is a great opportunity. So I figured this was a good time to bring back his football life story. Before every single game, the subject of today's video says a prayer because he knows that it could be the final time he takes the field. One final moment of serenity before he unlocks the beast that is Jonnu Smith, a 25-year-old 6'3", 250-pound tight end who's making a name for himself with the Tennessee Titans. Many are predicting that he could be on the verge of superstardom this year, but as far as Jonnu is concerned, he's already won in life, and at this point, everything else is just extra. Dude's been a diamond in the rough on every level, including high school. He barely got to the next level each time, but he made the most of every single opportunity put in front of him. On the field, he can do it all. But to this point in his young career, he hasn't been asked to do a ton. Despite that, as a former big receiver slash tight end myself, Jonnu has quickly become one of my favorite players in the league, a player that I'm extremely excited to watch this upcoming season, so I decided to cover him on the channel. This is the rise of Jonnu Smith, a rising star in the NFL, looking to make his mark. But other than that, without further ado, you already know what time it is, man. Cue the Wayne.
I'm no quitter, 'cause I'ma go get her.
Jonnu Smith might be on the verge of becoming a household name, but for the first 3 days of his life, the man didn't even have a name. See, his mom wanted to come up with something unique and hadn't chosen yet. She came up with a name that she'd actually never heard before, Jonnu. Jonnu was actually forced to develop coping skills really early on. He had to learn to put things in perspective and keep a relatively positive mindset just in order to move forward, you know? You'll actually see him utilize that skill a little bit later in this video as he started to deal with some hardships in his career, but we'll get there. Now, when Jonnu was only 4 years old, he actually lost his dad in a tow truck accident. As you'd expect, it took him a while to learn how to deal with his loss, but 1 year later, he discovered a game that offered a much needed distraction. At 5 years old, he walked onto the Pop Warner fields for the first time, and his love for the game began to manifest. Unfortunately for Jonnu, football would soon become a forbidden love, as his mom, who was now raising 6 kids on her own, wanted her youngest son to focus on school. Her oldest son had actually gotten into a lot of trouble in Philadelphia, kind of got caught up in that life. She didn't want the same thing for Jonnu, so she did what she thought was best for him. See, she didn't inherently have an issue with him playing ball, but the school she felt was best for his academics just so happened to not have a team. It really ate at dude to not be able to play the game that he'd fallen in love with, but he was a smart kid and understood that his mom was doing what she thought was best. He grew up in a rough part of Philadelphia, and since money was tight, Jonnu's mom feared he'd get mixed in with the wrong crowd. And real talk, even the most nimble of cats can get tripped up while chasing fast money. Jonnu's mom was determined that that would not be her son. So when he turned 15, she actually sent him from Philadelphia to Florida to live with his aunt. While I'm sure he felt the same range of emotions any kid would feel when moving 1,000 miles across the country, the thing he felt the most was excitement. Like once he found out what school he was gonna be enrolling in and he realized that they had a football team, dude hopped on a plane and was gone. He enrolled at Ocala High, far from a football powerhouse, as the school, despite being in Florida, which is a hotbed for high school football talent, had never produced a single D1 recruit. And if we being real, they really didn't do a whole lot to earn their first one either. Because when Jonnu, who's a natural beast of an athlete, was a junior, the man only had 9 receptions the entire season. You damn sure ain't about to get a D1 offer off that. Fortunately, the following year, dude caught 34 passes as the team went 5-5. Again, they had never produced a single D1 recruit, so colleges weren't exactly lining up to scout their talent. All except one coach, Mario Cristobal. Hardcore Bama fans and all the Oregon fans should be familiar with this name. At the time, Cristobal was the head coach at FIU, and his policy went like this. It's 545 high schools in Florida. At least one of his coaches was required to visit every single one of them. This was every single year he was in NCAA 14, still scouting all them 1-star dudes at the bottom of the list, trying to find that diamond in the rough. If you played the game, you know 9 times out of 10, you ain't gonna find nothing. But every now and then, you click on some dude and his number shoots up 15 points and boom, you just found a hidden gem. When one of those coaches finally got to Jonnu's school, which was probably 543rd on the list, they weren't overly impressed with his film or the way he had been coached in high school. But the scout who came down to see him in person said it only took him 10 minutes to know he would be a big-time college player. The rest of the coaching staff needed to see for themselves, so they invited Jonnu to an FIU camp. He obviously impressed them because when he left with a scholarship offer. The coaching staff probably celebrated. They had just secured one of FIU's greatest players ever. But before he ever took the field, every last one of them got fired. That's life. The hidden gem they found went on to become the most prolific tight end in FIU's entire history. In 4 years, he racked up 178 grabs for 2,000 yards and 18 touchdowns, the most by a tight end in all 3 categories. He really showed that toughness he developed growing up in Philly in his best college game. During his junior season, in a game versus Old Dominion, Jonnu caught 10 passes for 183 yards and 2 touchdowns. Great game. What's even greater is the fact that during the second quarter of that game, the dude actually tore his meniscus. Now, he knew his knee was hurting, he knew he was in pain, he had no idea the severity of the injury, finished the game, beats it out, broke a bunch of records, goes into the locker room after the game, gets that thing checked out. Yeah, bro, you're gonna miss the rest of the season. Yo, I don't know if we really give proper credit for cats that play through injuries like this. I mean, this is a huge man who cutting and planting off this thing, beasting out on the field, 10 catches, damn near 200 yards, 2 TDs, and he's doing it on one leg. It's amazing to me. He missed the final 4 games of the year and all of spring practice with that injury, but he came back as a senior, and despite having a rehabilitated knee, dude didn't miss a single step. His time at FIU started out with a bang, and it maintained right up until the end. Despite all the success he had and the legacy that he left, his career at FIU ended in like one of the most ridiculous ways imaginable. See, Jonnu and his then girlfriend had some issues, right? He was out there in college doing his thing, ended up getting her pregnant. Okay, cool. Problem is they had an immature relationship and the girlfriend felt that Jonnu wasn't giving her enough attention. Now check it out. This is literally what she told the police. I'm not like making this up. She felt she wasn't getting enough attention. So what she did was she heated up some water, right? Let it boil, and then she threw it on Jonnu, boiling water on him. Yep, that's what she did. She felt that was a reasonable response to not getting enough attention in a relationship. That's tough. That's really tough, bro. The 3rd-degree burns he sustained during this completely over-the-top and unnecessary situation derailed the remainder of his senior season and honestly could have ended up really hurting his career. And if you're the person who's about to give birth to this man's son, like the last thing you want to do is hinder his ability to provide for the child that y'all made. You know what I'm saying? That's come on, bro. You got to think. Fortunately, Jonnu bounced back when he was invited to the 2017 Senior Bowl. He already had the attention of many NFL scouts, but seeing dude up close really solidified it. At the NFL Combine, he measured in at 6'3", 248 pounds, ran a 4.62, had a 38-inch vertical, and hit 22 reps on a bench. Dude is a beast. He was selected in the 3rd round of the 2017 draft by the Tennessee Titans. Now remember, when he committed to FIU, he became the first player from his high school to ever get a D1 scholarship. Well, as the 100 overall pick, he was now the 3rd highest player ever selected from FIU in the school's history. The other 2 players are Jonathan Cyprian, who went 33rd overall in 2013, and T.Y. Hilton, who went 92nd overall in 2012. Now, tight ends don't usually go crazy from a statistical standpoint during their first couple of seasons in the NFL. This was no different for Jonnu. He did well in camp and ended up 2nd on the depth chart behind slept-on NFL veteran Delanie Walker. Actually, a player he'd be compared to pretty heavily, by the way. Delanie Walker played tight end in the NFL for like 14 or 15 years and is honestly one of the best players possible for Jonnu to learn from during his first couple of years in the league. Jonnu was far from the centerpiece of the offense as the backup tight end, but he did see 30 targets that year, of which he hauled in 18 receptions for 157 yards and 2 TDs. He played well in the role he was given and made a contribution to a team that would go on to beat the Alex Smith-led Chiefs in the wildcard game. But the following game, the unthinkable happened. Jonnu would tear his MCL, season over. A second major knee injury would have set a lot of players back significantly, but Jonnu attacked his rehab and returned for a slightly better season in 2018 as Delanie Walker ended up missing most of the year. He got off to a little bit of a slow start coming off his injury, but he started to find his footing toward the middle of the season. He was playing well and things was looking good as he was becoming more and more part of the offense. But on December 6, 2018, his legs were snatched from underneath him once again. And this all happened on a play everybody remembered. The thing is, nobody remembers it from Jonnu's perspective. His block here helped spring Derrick Henry, who goes on to bully a couple of Jags defenders on his way to a 99-yard touchdown run. But when this pile collapses on Jonnu, he suffered yet another knee injury, his 2nd torn MCL in as many years. It once again ended his season, and some thought, your 3rd knee injury, yo, this might end your career, bro. But the man never wavered. He kept perspective. A couple of years earlier, he'd actually lost one of his best friends that he grew up with to the streets of Philadelphia. This used to be Jonnu's right-hand man, and he understood that had he not been sent to Florida to play football in the first place, he wouldn't be here. And if he wasn't here, there's a very good chance he'd have been there, back in Philly with his boy. That could have easily been him. His fate could have easily been the exact same. But here he was an NFL player. He was a millionaire. His family was good. They was safe. They ain't had to worry about nothing. So yeah, tearing up your knee sucks. But oh my goodness, it could be so much worse, right? Like, in perspective, there's so many people that will switch places with me right now. You know what I'm saying? That's what he's thinking. So he keeps that mentality. He keeps that mindset. He attacks his rehab again. And I gotta say this, bro. When you know how long and how difficult a process is, it becomes harder and harder and harder to dive into it fully. Trust me, right? This is his 2nd MCL injury, so he knows what's ahead of him in rehab. Kept his mind strong though, kept his mental, attacked it, came back yet again, and this time, he was ready. In 2019, Jonnu had his best season as a pro. He only got 14 more targets than the previous year, but he actually made 15 more receptions, averaging 12.5 yards per catch. He finished the season with 439 yards and 3 touchdowns, which put him right in the middle of the pack as far as tight ends are concerned. The thing is, he only had 44 targets, and there's nobody else in the top 20 of tight ends that has less than 60. The man's super dangerous once he gets the ball in his hands. Only 3 tight ends in the league last year had more yards after contact: Kittle, Waller, and Kelsey. Kelsey and Waller basically had 3 times the targets and catches and still only beat dude out by 30 yards after contact. Now, obviously, all of those guys are great. They're the top tier of tight ends, so I'm not trying to like take nothing from them. I'm comparing him to them because they're the best, okay? I know people sometimes get this type of stuff misconstrued. Anyway, the point I'm trying to make is he's been incredibly efficient while being still a pretty small part of the offense. He was top 10 in total yards after catch, and he's got the least amount of targets by far in that group. He's so damn good with the ball in his hands, they literally lined this man up at running back a few times. He actually got 4 carries on the season and gained nearly 80 yards rushing, including a 57-yard gain. So please don't sleep on his overall ability. Dude's remarkably balanced and can line up in multiple spots. There's a pretty good chance he'll take yet another step this season depending on how the Titans decide to use him. But regardless to how that goes, Jonnu has quickly become one of my favorite players in the league, as I love his play style, his mentality, his approach, and he's got a dope story. So boom. For me, sports isn't always about rooting for the guy who gets the best stats. Don't get it twisted, I love watching superstar players as much as the next person. But one of my favorite things is finding players who may not necessarily be a star and may go under the radar when it comes to most fans, but they've got compelling and inspiring stories, and it adds a layer of depth and humanity to a sport that can be pretty damn brutal at times. Every player is not going to be a superstar, but that doesn't mean their impact isn't felt on the field. And for some football fans who like to look a little bit deeper, cats like this can quickly become some of your favorite players. Jonnu Smith has become yet another one of those guys for me. And maybe after watching this video, he'll become one of those guys for you too. That's all I got for y'all today, man. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, don't forget, click the thumbs up button, subscribe if you're brand new, and enable your notifications. Click the bell. That way you're notified every time I upload a video. If you need more content to watch and you enjoyed this one, maybe check out my video I did on Allen Lazard, another role player type of guy who plays for the Packers. Dude's got an amazing story that I went over in the video popping up on the screen. Also, I have tons, like hundreds of these videos, so feel free to look around the channel, find more videos that you like. The catalog is full. Anyway, man, other than that, my name is Flemlo Raps. I'm gonna holler at y'all next time, fellas. Bye.